station. We need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Beertime with BigBird, episode number 23, live stream number 2. Happy Friday, first of all. If you're new here, this is the Oh So Fun show. It's a nice laid-back Friday evening show where I crack open a new beer that we've never had, ideally, and then I sit here and I talk about a little bit of news that's been bothering me over the last week because I think it's either under coverage or we're just not going to be able to get to it in the next coming show or whatever. And today, the beer of the day is this thing called Hoot Owlin Hefe Ale. So it's a Hefeweizen from one of my favorite local breweries called Western Red Brewing. So if I can get the dang thing open, there we go. The first thing we do on every show is we crack open the beer. We make a fool out of ourselves by screwing up the pour live on the internet. I'm going to have to go up and around the microphone because, believe it or not, I'm usually a pretty good beer pourer, but for some reason, every time I do it on the show, I'm not. But as the title suggests, today we're going nuclear because there's been a lot of talk lately, especially with the passage of the quote-unquote Inflation Reduction Act, which, if you guys didn't know, is the single greatest piece of climate change legislation apparently ever passed in the United States. We found that out recently. But yeah, with all that talk, there's been a lot of talk about green energy and electric vehicles and so on and so forth. And I've always just had this question in the back of my mind: if we're not going to entertain the cleanest form of energy that we know to date, which would be nuclear energy, how are we going to be powering all these electric vehicles, considering there's going to be an exponential draw on the power grid? So we're going to dive into a little bit of that today. But of course, before we do that, let's dive into this here Hefeweizen. It's nice. It's a nice cloudy Hefe, as a Hefeweizen should be. Let's take a smell. Oh, this is good. This is going to be the first beer I drank all week, actually. Looking forward to this. It's got a nice, round, real weedy smell like a Hefeweizen should. Real biscuity, but kind of citrusy. I'm looking forward to this. Oh, yeah. Everything I want it to be and more. It's officially Friday night, everybody. Welcome to the weekend. Welcome to the long weekend. I hope everybody's got something fun planned for Labor Day weekend. We here at Salt Streets have something amazing planned this weekend, and that is episode 132. That's right. Both hosts are going to be live in studio tomorrow, Pacific Standard Time, noon Pacific Standard Time. I don't know if I said that, but we're going to be in studio right here. We're going to be breaking down all sorts of stuff. Actually, let me pull up a quick little preview. I wrote the show map down, obviously, because we're in the middle of show prep. I just hadn't have it pulled up yet. So tomorrow on the show, we're going to be talking about some local stories. There's a cheer scandal that's been going on in one of the school districts around here, so we're going to be diving into that. We're also going to be looking in, if y'all remember the Chaz Chop over in Seattle, this is right in our backyard, essentially. The current mayor at the time, there's been this investigation going with her, a bunch of texts that were deleted from her phone around the time of the Chaz Chop. And so there's been a lot of speculation about what might be in there and so on and so forth. But we're going to be diving into that. We're going to be talking about a gas car ban, which is not just here in our own home state of Washington, but also all over the country. States are starting to implement new gas car bans and stuff like that. So this stuff that we're going to talk to tonight is going to probably dovetail really, really nice with that. And then we also probably will be talking about this story that popped up last week. We were talking about it actually right before, I think it was last Friday, last Friday. When we were at work, we were listening to a podcast, one of the Seattle, what is it, an NPR podcast, I believe. Might be a Seattle Times podcast. I'm not going to remember now. But they're looking at removing a section of a state highway because supposedly is all these different things. We'll be talking about all those, and that would be the first segment, and then we're going to take our usual 3-minute break and come back for segment 2. We're going to be talking about school's back in session, kind of, and we're going to be looking at the Minneapolis School Union, and we're going to be looking at the DC vax mandate delay. We got the student debt cancellation, which we talked a little bit about here on this show last Friday. We're going to be talking about the no white people college clubs, and then this random thing that like only we on the podcast have been talking about for a long time, but the mainstream is finally figuring out now that there's kids out there that might be having some learning loss due to everything that's been going on with COVID. So we're going to talk about that in segment 2. Segment 3, we're calling government involvement. So we're going to be getting like the Trump update. We're going to be looking at some ATF, NFA item confiscation, Hunter Biden, Tim Tebow. There's a whole thing going on with the FBI in that one. We have this wild story about an active duty soldier that was 3D printing things and then kind of doing his own little black market stuff. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about 2 episodes, Joe Rogan Experience, one with Mark Zuckerberg, the other one with, now I'm not going to remember his first name, but Berenson. That's right on the tip of my tongue. I feel bad because I'm a subscriber to his Substack. Is it Chris Berenson? It's got to be Chris Berenson. But anyways, he was big. He was real big with like COVID, the forbidden COVID talk that you weren't allowed to. And he got banned off of Twitter, and it turns out he's going to be suing the White House because turns out they're the ones that asked Twitter to take him off the platform. And then finally, in part 4, we're going to be reaching into the grab bag, which is like our never-ending, reoccurring, smaller story segment. I'm talking about Breonna Taylor update. Donovan is going to go whole hog on this wonderful, wonderful new promotion that Subway's got going on. And that's all I'm going to say about that because he is so fired up about this. I can't wait for him to just blow the doors open on this story. And of course, we've got the sale of Iranian drones to Russia for the Ukraine conflict. And then we have a brand new COVID booster that's set to come out that hasn't had human trials yet. So anyways, that is all of that tomorrow right here on the channel at noon. Make sure you are subscribed and you're getting in the comments, and you'll be able to get those notifications for when we go live tomorrow. So there's that. That's tomorrow. It's gonna be a big day, big episode. Very excited. And this beer's so good. I am so glad it's Friday night. I hope everybody's having a beautiful start to your weekend. So without any further ado, let's dive into today's just kind of wonderful story. We're gonna have to not bury the lead on this one because we had some late breaking news that has to do with this situation. The Nord Stream 1 pipeline, the main artery of natural gas into Europe from Russia, has now officially been indefinitely shut down. I pulled this story up from DW.com, which is a primary German and European news outlet, and they say the Russian oil firm Gazprom said gas supplies to the pipeline were completely stopped due to equipment issues. The energy giant gave no time frame on when it would restart the pipeline, which supplies gas to Western Europe. Gazprom halted gas flow through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline to Germany Friday, citing a gas leak. Yeah, I'm sure it was a gas leak. And providing no time frame for when supplies could be restarted. So what do we know so far? We know the state-owned firm said supplies would remain halted through Saturday after the leak was detected. The energy giant said the pipeline would not restart until repairs were fully implemented on August 19th. So we're talking 3 weeks ago. Gazprom said it would stop the flow of gas through the pipeline from August 31st until September 2nd, aka right now, due to routine maintenance. Previously, Gazprom said gas would continue to flow on Saturday after a different turbine repair was required. Moscow blames Western sanctions for deterring routine maintenance on the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. Gazprom said the leak was found at the main gas turbine at the not even going to try compressor station near St. Petersburg. Klaus Muller, president of a really fancy German gas retailer, said, quote, for the time being, the LNG terminals, the relevant storage levels, and significant savings required are becoming more important. Yeah, you think. You don't have any more LNG coming in. He added, it's good that Germany is now better prepared, but now it's down to each and every one. Okay, so there's the big headline. It was Gazprom, a.k.a. the Russian government, officially cut off indefinitely, supposedly, natural gas pipe, or the natural gas pipeline, the main artery, the only thing that they rely on for liquid natural gas. They just cut it off. And Lord knows if it's ever coming back. I mean, they cite repairs, but who knows at this point? That's probably just the press arm of the government just trying to say that, because if they were to say the actual government just said, no, we're cutting you off, that has different implications. So the main question is then, with all of the green energy dealings that have been going on in Western Europe, primarily like France and Germany. Germany's a huge one because they're right next door. They've all been cutting back on their nuclear facilities into like their coal plants, and trying to shift to greener forms of energy, which has all just really been doublespeak, because they've also just been relying essentially on liquid natural gas imports from Russia. And now that those are cut off, we have a series of other stories that I wanted to bring up, because I think this spells the future, whether or not they wanted it to, or not. And this is from the Washington Post, a decade after, and this was done about a week ago, this story. A decade after Fukushima disaster, foes of nuclear power reconsider. The war in Ukraine is reviving global interest in nuclear power, since gas and oil shortages have shaped energy markets and driven up fossil fuel prices. From Japan to Germany to Britain to the United States, leaders of the countries that had stopped investing in nuclear power are now considering building new power plants or delaying the closure of existing ones. The shift is especially notable in Japan and Germany, where both turned decisively against nuclear power after the 2011 Fukushima disaster, and it comes even as fears mount about another potential nuclear disaster at Europe's largest nuclear plant in Ukraine. Of course, Washington Post is going to bring that up. Really, the focus of the story is here that a lot of the world powers that are nuclear powers have been, over the last decade or two, pulling back and shutting down their nuclear power plants for one reason or another. They all seem to have their own reasons. Japan looks at the Fukushima disaster and says, yeah, this is too dangerous. We don't want to do this. Germany, I don't exactly understand their reasoning behind it, but they've been shutting all theirs down. The Swiss, another story here. There we go. Come on, routers. Get out of there. Reuters. Swiss group to launch petition to rethink nuclear power plants. And this is a particular group that is petitioning the government in the Swiss government. It's called Stop Blackouts. And they've been... Switzerland plans to close its 5 nuclear reactors following a 2017 decision prompted by safety concerns after the 2011 nuclear disaster in Fukushima, Japan. So again, the Swiss government was essentially closing their 5 nuclear reactors down. They decided that 2017, noting again the Fukushima disaster. This was all well and good when you had oil flowing in from Russia, good cheap oil for energy. But now, as that is definitely being shut off, I mean, we've seen the taps been tightening for a long time at this point, ever since the Ukraine-Russian conflict really kicked off. Oil and liquid natural gas has been the forefront of everybody's mind in Europe, because it is the main thing they rely on for their power. Right now, across Europe, after this kind of announcement, I think it was today, the gas prices are shooting through the roof. Not gas prices, but power prices are shooting through the roof. Energy costs, if you will, over in Europe. Some say up to 1,000%. You find different stories right now, and obviously that's a spike and it'll level out, but it's definitely going to be exponentially higher, probably at a completely unaffordable cost at this point. So we've got now Germany, Japan, the UK, the United States, Switzerland looking at doing this. And of course, we even have South Korea from World Nuclear News. This came out on yesterday. This is September the 1st. South Korea's Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Energy has released a draft long-term energy plan looking 15 years ahead. Under the plan, the proportion of nuclear energy would grow to almost 1/3 of the country's total energy mix by 2030 in a move aimed at boosting energy security and meeting climate change goals. Boom! That's it right there. You want to meet your carbon footprint reduction, you want to meet your climate goals, nuclear is the way to go. If you're a nuclear power, there is no reason at this point you shouldn't be looking to do this. We have had disasters. We have had nuclear incidents over the years. Not that many. You'd be surprised to hear. Not that many. Fukushima being probably the forefront of everybody's mind because it was so recently, but also it was a natural disaster that caused it. It wasn't like a Chernobyl incident where it was due to essentially incompetence. And if there's one people you shouldn't get to build a really strong nuclear reactor, it's probably the Soviets, because the Soviets weren't great at much, and everybody was too afraid to say anything because if you found a problem, you might just end up in the gulag. So everybody, including I don't remember if we mentioned it yet, but France is going to be restarting the EDF. That is the the national energy department in France. I think it's I think they say it in this article. We'll read it, but they're going to be restarting all of its nuclear reactors this winter. Paris, September 2nd. French state-owned utility EDF. They don't even spell it out. Well, it's probably Energy Department of France, but in French. That's what we're going to go with. We'll restart all its nuclear reactors, more than half of which are now closed for maintenance or technical issues this winter. France energy minister said on Friday. Oh man, the names today are killing me. Ponier Runcher, probably butchering that, spoke after President Emmanuel Macron held a special cabinet meeting to address the country's energy supply situation, coordinate efforts to reduce consumption, and prepare contingency plans in case the country faces a shortage. Quote, EDF has committed to restart all of its reactors this winter. That's going to be really good because when it gets cold, you're going to need more energy. He said that currently 32, they have so many reactors. 32 of the EDF's 56 reactors are halted for maintenance or technical problems. He said that the maximum number of reactors are now closed for maintenance in order to make sure that they will be ready and available during peak demand periods this winter. Shout out France. And of course, France ain't the only one. Look at this. Even the United States is getting behind this deal. This is from the Journal Record. Advanced nuclear energy key to future, EPA chief says. And this was done September 2nd. That was done today. Here we go. The head of the U.S. Environmental Protective Agency said Friday that advanced nuclear technology will be critical for both the United States and Japan as they step up cooperation to meet decarbonization goals. Look at this. We're going green while going nuclear, which is also kind of historically like a green color, isn't it? Green, or maybe it's yellow. But I am so happy to hear this, because if we're going to be shifting to purely electric vehicles in the near future, which our state currently is. I mean, we have a deadline. I believe it's 2030, 2035. California is right there, and I'm sure there's more states in the U.S. that's jumping onto this thing. It's going to take a massive, massive load to our already, kind of strained electrical grid. I mean, we've heard Pete Buttigieg talk about it before. He is, he says that we can't do it now with the energy infrastructure we have now. We can't do it now, but we could do it with the infrastructure of tomorrow. We could do it with the infrastructure tomorrow, which definitely makes sense considering how the government thinks. So this is good news. The U.S., Japan, I mean, a lot of world powers here. France, Germany, What were the other ones? The UK. Yeah, Japan, Germany, the UK, France. Looks like the Swiss are going to be looking into this. United States. It's huge. Even our most like thorn in the side green state in the United States, California, they extended the life of the state's last nuclear plant. This came out the September 1st, so just yesterday. Citing searing summer temperature and expected energy shortage, California lawmakers approved legislation aimed at extending the life of the state's last operating nuclear power plant. The Diablo Canyon plant, the state's largest single source of electricity, had been slated to shutter. Why would you write that? Slated to shutter. It had been scheduled to close by 2025. The last-minute proposal passed by the state legislature early Thursday could keep it open 5 years longer. You're gonna need longer than that there, Gavin Newsom. But hey, that's all right. You'll figure it out. In part by giving the plant's owner, Pacific Gas PG&E, they got a good track record, a $1.4 billion forgivable loan. Oh man, $1.4 forgivable loan. Let me ask you, what is a loan that is forgivable? Is that just free money? Does that mean you don't have to pay it back because it's forgivable? But hey, if the state's doing it and it's a state-run utility, it's basically you're playing with in-house money anyways. So that is that. It's good news that it seems that even if it takes a potential world war on the doorstep to really remind us, if you will, the importance of this green energy system that we already have in use, and currently with today's technology, we could probably make it 100 times better. To say the very least. I mean, most of the nuclear plants around the United States and around the world weren't built any time in the recent past. I mean, we're talking probably decades and decades ago. So I can only imagine that a brand new nuclear power plant built from the ground up today is going to be exponentially a better investment than it was just trying to keep the old plants of the 60s, the 70s, the 80s up and running. Because how could it not be more efficient? How could it not be a better system? Either way, it's all good. It's all good news. That it's just once I hear a lot of this electric car business lately. We're going to be talking about it at length on the show tomorrow. So please, again, make sure to be here right here on the Salt the Streets YouTube channel tomorrow at noon. If you're not out in vacation land because it's Labor Day weekend, but we're going to be talking about that so much. The question is always on my mind. Everybody talks, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get rid of cars. We're going to get rid of all these gas-powered cars. After this date, you cannot register a new gas-powered car in this state, which is a huge deal all in itself. And I'm sure I will pontificate on that at great length tomorrow on the show. But nobody's ever really brought up the idea of, okay, well, how are you going to charge that thing? Where is the energy going to come from? Because while you're shifting everybody away from fossil fuels in their personal vehicles, you're also shifting the entire power grid away from fossil fuels with really no realistic substitution. I mean, wind and solar, they all sound great, but they do not return on the investment that you put into them. So you're getting exponentially less energy from the amount of energy you're putting into it to build the damn thing. So it's always been a question, and perhaps this is indeed the answer. Perhaps while I'm sitting here drinking Hefeweizen, we're going to go nuclear, which would not be a bad thing in my mind. So yeah, that's it, everybody. Thank you very much for stopping by. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the weekend. I'm very, very, very excited about tomorrow's podcast. Again, right here, Salt Streets YouTube, noon Pacific time. I hope to see you all there. But until then, cheers, everybody.